Hey friends, it's Jess and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we are going to be diving into the world of mixed media and creating 5 mixed media tags. Our background is going to be created using a bunch of different Simon Hurley Create products. I know that these get used a lot for card making, but I feel like there's not a lot of examples of mixed media, so we're doing that today and we're starting right now. To get started, I chose an 8.5 by 11 piece of cardstock. This is Simon Hurley's Stark White cardstock, and it is nice and thick, sturdy, great for card bases and layering pieces, and it does really well with blending inks and things like that. So it was a really good, versatile choice for my mixed media. Now, it's not necessarily made to take a bunch of water, so if you plan to do mixed media that has a lot of water or lots of things that are wet, you may want to add a layer of gesso before you use this cardstock for your mixed media, but for what we're doing today, it was more than perfect. So to start off, I chose the Painted Lines stamp set. This is a background stamp, and I inked it up with some archival black ink, and then I just sort of rolled it and smushed it and put different parts of the background stamp onto my cardstock. Now, the thing about mixed media is that you really don't want it to look perfect. You don't want perfectly straight lines or perfect areas where it's like a box or a rectangle of a particular stamped image or stencil. I think the beauty of mixed media, or at least this style of mixed media, is kind of the randomness of it. And just there's something beautiful about all of the kind of distressed or vintage looking styles you can get out of this. And I really, really love that effect. So the other thing with mixed media is layers. They seem to be kind of the most important piece. And I have a hard time with this because I really like the way something looks, and I'm worried about taking the next step and ruining it, or adding too much or covering up something that I really liked from before. The thing about mixed media is that you just have to be brave and take that next step. I kind of have a phobia of getting messy, which is ridiculous, but I get nervous and don't want to jump into a project when I feel like it's going to make a huge mess in my craft room or get my hands really dirty and gross. But I'm trying to embrace the mess and just sort of do what needs to be done to kind of get things going and fulfill my creative soul. So what I've done so far is take stamps and stencils and inks and create this background just using those basic supplies that you probably already have for card making. I'll have everything linked down in the description below in case you want to check anything out, but feel free to substitute whatever you have in your stash. Don't feel like you have to go out and buy something brand new every time you want to make a project, because there are so many things that you can swap out and get really cool results with. Like this stencil or this stamp set. This is actually a baseball themed stamp set, but I saw that kind of like chain link pattern and I thought, oh my gosh, how cool would this be on my background? Now, at that point, I had thought my background was done. I was just going to leave it as is, but I saw that and I couldn't resist it. And I'm so glad that I added it. Now, I felt like I got a little bit too much of a perfect stamp in a few of them. They looked a little too perfect, a little too symmetrical, a little too rectangular. And so I wanted to kind of distress these and add something else to it. I went ahead and used some water. This is just clear water in the distress sprayer because Simon's inks are water reactive. So they do distress and kind of leave like a lifted area when you put water on them. And then I grabbed some Distress Oxide sprays as well. Now I just prefer to take the lid off and tap the lid over top of my project rather than spraying it, because I feel like the spray is just way too much sometimes for what I'm doing. And I just wanted to make sure that I was just getting some nice splatters rather than a whole sprayed area. I did the same thing with my Dina Wakley acrylic gloss spray, and I let that dry. Now this is white gesso, and this is from Dina Wakley. This is a white gesso that you can apply to the base of a piece of cardstock or paper to kind of create a waterproof layer. But because this is white, you can also use it as a layer or a texture or something to build up your mixed media design. And I think it was perfect for toning down some of those chain link areas that I wasn't as happy with. Once my background was dry, I was ready to go ahead and cut it into my tag shapes. Now I had a file saved on Cricut Design Space, so I just went ahead and used my Cricut Maker to cut out the tag shapes. But if you have a punch or something like that, or a die, you can use those and you'll get the same basic result here. Now my piece of cardstock when I started was 8.5 by 11. And I was able to get 5 tags out of that. But this is just kind of personal preference or based on what materials or supplies you have. You can make larger or smaller tags just depending on what you like and what you have on hand. Now to build up the tags, now that they're cut out, I went ahead and grabbed some of the Simon Hurley stamp sets that I have on hand. Now this one has some gorgeous flower images and some leaves, and I knew that I wanted to use a bunch of these and kind of have a general theme to all the tags, so they kind of coordinated. Not perfect matches, but what do they say? Sisters, not twins. Something like that, but for my tags. I went ahead and used archival jet black ink to stamp those images out because I wasn't sure if I was going to be using any sort of water, and I wanted to make sure that the ink didn't smear. I figured I wasn't going to be using alcohol markers, so I figured a water-safe ink would be good. I went ahead and put some foam tape on the back of a couple of these and some liquid adhesive on the back of the leaves, and then assembled my very first tag. Now I left this one uncolored. You could certainly color this, and if I had gone back to do this again, I may have stamped the actual images in maybe like a brown or something more neutral so that they would coordinate just a little bit better with my tags and my vintage sort of background. But again, it's all personal preference, and if there are colors or themes that you want to go with for what you're working with, then by all means you can definitely change those. The cool thing is Simon actually has a full line of inks that you can choose from, and there are lots of colors that coordinate so well together. So there are lots of things that you can kind of mix and match and make work. Now I stamped out the sentiment "Hello Friend," and I'm just using a little bit of white thread. This is literally just stuff you use for the sewing machine. I just keep a bunch of it. I have a sewing machine that I rarely use, but I keep a bunch of different colors of thread for things like this if I want to add just a little bit of something extra to a project. Now, I was having a little trouble with my foam tape here, but I was able to get the backing off. This is not my scrapbook.com foam tape. It's just another roll that I had on hand. If you guys watch my videos, you know that I definitely recommend the scrapbook.com foam tape because the back is so easy to get off and you don't have to spend forever picking at it like I just did in that clip. All right, so moving on to the next tag, I was able to pull out some just scraps of things that I had from previous projects. So these 2 little containers here, I actually keep extra pieces and bits of things that I've created but I don't have a use for. Like in the other one, there's a bunch of stamped and colored images and things like that. And I keep these on hand just in case I need something or I want to pull something else out. It's nice to have that option. Now these butterflies were from a different project that I created probably like 2 years ago. And I actually still had them, so it was the perfect time to get them out and use them. I attached one of them to the tag itself. So I used a liquid adhesive and glued the whole thing down. And then for the second one, I only glued down the center so that the wings would be free to move and kind of flap like an actual butterfly. I thought that would be really pretty and it would give a little bit of added dimension. Now, I could have also used some paint or something to color these so that they were a little more coordinated, but honestly, I like the black. If you don't, like I said earlier, you can always change up the colors and make it work for you. I played around with the placement a little bit and I wasn't quite happy with where it was originally. I had wanted it to go right on top of the butterfly, but then it was holding the wings down and then kind of defeating the whole purpose of having having them free from being glued down, so I ended up moving it down to the bottom. Now I decided to use a little bit of Simon's ink here. This is the Gur color. It's a brown and I just sort of applied the ink in a circular blending motion on top of the flowers that I had already inked or stamped. And then once I had that all done, I went ahead and cut all of them out off of camera. Now I use a pair of sharp scissors for my fussy cutting. I would definitely recommend practicing your fussy cutting. I like to leave a white border, but if you don't like that, that's totally okay. It's all, again, personal preference. But I tend to try really hard to move the paper. Move the paper, not the scissors. So instead of moving your scissors all the way around, just try to hold your scissors basically still and move the paper as you cut. And that seems to give me really nice, smooth results with my fussy cutting. For that one, the tag that I just finished, I used some of the Tim Holtz Big Chat. That's like a sticker pack that has just a bunch of different words in it. I used that to make a tag that says perfectly possible. I kind of wanted just some encouraging and uplifting things to put in here, just something kind of inspiring. So now I'm using up all of these flowers. I'm using some foam tape for these and really trying to make the most of this. Now, I felt like they needed a little something extra because they didn't feel quite as grungy and vintagey and all that as the background did. So I actually pulled out my acrylic gloss spray again and flicked a little of that on there just to kind of make it feel more connected and grounded to my background. Then I went ahead and attached a sentiment strip. Now this one says, "You are so much stronger than you think." I actually had this, there's the first one that I made with the butterfly has the same sentiment, but I believe they're from two different stamp sets because they don't look quite the same. But the one in the first one with the butterfly is from a Simon Hurley stamp set. And like I said, I'll have everything linked down below for you guys. Now for this last one, I wanted to go ahead and do something a little bit different. So I pulled out some thickers that I had on hand. I don't use these a lot, but I have them and I figured I really need to start using up some of my supplies. So I grabbed these and put them to work. I chose just 3 letters and made it say joy. And I was originally looking for one of my little words on the Big Chat or Chit Chat pages that said choose. I really wanted it to say choose joy because that's kind of something that I'm trying to focus more on lately. Choosing happiness and just kind of being happy with what we have rather than always chasing that next thing. Anyway. Intentional happiness. That's what I'm going for. But I ended up doing share joy because I feel like that's just as important. So that was the last one. We already finished 5 tags, friends, and I'm so excited to flip through them and let you guys see all of them. I hope that you guys enjoyed this project and you've got some mixed media ideas to kind of take on and try out. If you decide to try some mixed media with Simon Hurley products, drop me a comment and let me know. And also, I would love to know what your favorite color combinations are for Simon Hurley's dye inks. Thank you all so much for spending some time with me today. I hope you guys have a great rest of the day and I'll see you in another video really soon.